Hello everyone and welcome back to today's video. So today I wanted to explore this random emoji generator that I found online. You can just search random emoji generator. It should pop up about the first link. And I wanted to use the 3 emoji challenge. You may have seen this on YouTube maybe a few years ago. And basically I just clicked through the generator until I found a few emojis that sparked my interest. So the ones I got were these ones, but the last one I ended up using was the umbrella, the moon, and like the side-to-side emojis. I thought number 1, it would be a good color palette, and number 2, it just sparked a lot of ideas that the other emojis didn't really do for me. So in this next stage of planning, I am going to be thumbnailing several ideas that just sort of popped into my head as I was thinking and, drawing. So this one I wanted to do more of a perspective thing, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to do the background. So I kind of jump around a lot in these thumbnails, from very similar ideas to completely out of the scope of whatever I drew for the first one. Here's a person like riding on an umbrella, just some funky ideas. I really wanted to play around with this idea and I wanted to be creative for the final end product, which you will see at the end of this video, so stay tuned. I didn't go as dramatic as I thought I would. I did do and play around with some things that I don't normally do, which we will get into further on in the video. But I did some new color techniques. I tried foreshortening and perspective, but it's just a process that I really wanted to try out. This was more of an experimental piece, and I think it really paid off. So here I am just finishing up the thumbnails, and you'll see me in a little bit circle in red the thumbnails that I think I'm going to end up using. And then you'll also see my creative process of how I clean up this sketch to become the final product. So after deciding on what thumbnail I wanted to do, I ended up sizing it up to fit my canvas. I'm using a 5x7 in Procreate today. And then I just sort of imported a model that I found online. I used this website called Just Sketch Me. Not sponsored or affiliated in any way, but it's just useful for character models. I found it recently through a YouTuber that I personally watch, so I thought I would use it for this like perspective sort of thing, just to help me map out the body a little bit better. I did slightly change the proportions of the model just because of how I draw males. It's slightly different. I'm still, improving on anatomy, doing my several studies, just my general artist journey. So here I am sketching out the main body's frame in blue, and I'll go through several different sketching colors. Normally I just sketch in one color, which is usually either a dark blue or just plain old black. And then I set my brush to opacity so I can do lighter lines and darker lines when I need to flesh, the sketch out and make it a bit cleaner. I also imported a picture of an umbrella just to help me with the overall construction of it. I have drawn umbrellas a few times. From what I can remember, I've drawn one umbrella in a full piece, and then I've done sketches of umbrellas in my sketchbook when I've been drawing other characters. So if I were to estimate, I'd probably haven't drawn an umbrella more than maybe like 3 or 4 times. But this piece was very experimental for me because I used, number 1, many more references than I usually do. I'm the type of artist that kind of just draws whatever I draw, and whether or not it's correct is, well, oh well. I don't always use a ton of references, but when I do, it definitely pays off. I should probably use them more, but there's always things to work on. And sometimes it's just fun to draw from imagination and then compare that to a drawing that has been used with a reference. So it's always very useful. But, just doing all the references, like with the body, with the umbrella, that's something I don't normally do. Like importing a picture of an umbrella just to draw it from that specific angle is very new to me, and it made the process a lot easier because I personally didn't have to think about the construction of an umbrella. I don't know for any fellow artists out there if you've ever drawn an umbrella, but they're complicated. Like, they are complicated. They're hard to draw. And I also looked up a reference for his tuxedo. So if you see a lot of, jumps in where I am drawing versus, when I click off to go to Safari and look at a bunch of references, it's just, me looking to see like how a tuxedo is formed on the body. I looked at a lot of like models, for example, of like Calvin Klein, because they make suits, I think. Or, well, they probably do if they have male models. But, you know, just people in suits. It's very useful to see like how they form on the body, how they wrinkle, where they wrinkle, what sort of material they're made out of, and how thick or thin that material is. Because the weight of the material changes how it folds and creases. So for suits, they tend to be made out of a slightly thicker fabric. It's like kind of like a really soft, like sort of leathery kind of texture. Not really, it differs. The suits that I've seen are usually in like a super soft, sort of stretchy leather. But, you know, it was kind of difficult. I didn't really do a ton of shading in the actual like line art and sketch for wrinkles, but in the coloring, I kind of bring it back. I also really like how the coloring turned out in this piece, which you will see very shortly. But one of the things that I kind of struggled with is, number one, this hand. I had no clue how I wanted it to work originally. I figured it out eventually, thankfully. And number two, I didn't get in the final piece to put the little swirl of the umbrella in because I ended up sizing up the piece so that way it filled more of the canvas and it cropped out the little spindly bit, or like the part where the umbrella bends and you normally like put your hand or something. So, you know, I didn't get to put that in. Also, I drew rings originally on this hand and I ended up putting him in gloves, and I didn't even realize until I was editing this. Like, I completely just forgot about the idea that like, oh, I'm gonna put rings on his hands, and then completely covers it with gloves. So, I don't know. But I think this is a very like cool piece. I enjoy everything that happens in it, and I'm happy to bring you along for the process. So for the rest of this sketching process, because I don't believe it's for too much longer before I start the line art, I just want to tell you all how thankful I am to have reached 100 subscribers. We did it before March 30th, you guys. I want to appreciate and thank you all for the support so far. You know, I've been doing YouTube for consistently just about all of this year and partially of last year, so 2022. And I really want to thank you for your support constantly as I'm, you know, always creating, and I appreciate having an audience to be able to create too. But yes, here I am starting the line art, and I just picked colors from the emojis just because I wanted to have a unified color palette. I do stray slightly from this color palette just to add a bit more variation, tone, value, you know, things like that. But for the most part, I do stick to this color palette decently closely. But for the line art, it's just my usual process. I think I'm using the script brush from Calligraphy, comes default with Procreate. I've been really enjoying it so far with its line variation. I think you can really tell the line variation in his hair more specifically. But, you know, the speed paint's going kind of fast because this speed paint took me almost 6 hours, you guys. I had 6 hours of footage to cut down for this, which isn't that bad. I've had longer, definitely. But, you know, yeah, I'm very happy that I was able to fit it in this much of a time span because originally when I had edited it down, it was like 30 minutes. So I'm very grateful for the power of technology and the fact that I can speed this up 8 times. So, yeah. Drew the umbrella in, did this moon thing. I feel like I should have made the moon, like, symbolism / like, motif more visible because I feel like once I start coloring in the piece, you don't really see much of it. Like there's like 3 main elements where it is. It's in his earring, his little like button, but by the time I zoom out, you barely see that. And then in his umbrella, obviously. But do you guys remember earlier when I said I tried a lot of new things with this piece? Well, not only using more references and doing foreshortening and perspective, I also did a grayscale shading layer first. So in order to do this, to set up your layers, I'm pretty sure you can do this in virtually any program. You have your layer, which you fill with a color. I did about 50% of gray, or yeah, black. It's like 50% gray, just a gray color. And then over top of that, you take another gray color, set that layer to multiply if you wish. I shaded everything without multiply, then set it to multiply for my shadows. And, ooh, this is really flying by, sorry you guys. And it just makes it a lot easier in order to shade everything afterwards. So you shade first, then you do your base colors, and then you add any extra tones or whatever if you wish. And by doing this, it just makes it a lot easier to have a cohesive color palette. And I really enjoyed doing this. I think it's fun. I'll probably do it again, but in a slightly different variation. But this is going really fast. But for the most part, I just shaded the jacket, his pants, his gloves. His gloves are probably my favorite thing to shade besides the like umbrella pole that he's holding on to. And I really wanted a super strong light source for this. I wanted it to be pungent. I wanted it to kind of like smack you in the face. So here I am adding the rim lighting, and this is about the finished product. So I want to thank you all for watching, and as I put my signature here, we're all done. Thank you, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye-bye!